can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walk through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Yuval, and Yuval runs Akooda. You can check him out at Akooda.co. Before I formally introduce you, Yuval, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is kind of a combination, this is part of the Top Israel Business Leader series and SaaS series. I've had some interesting Israeli companies, Yuval, you'd appreciate. So I had Moise Navon on, who was one of the founding engineers at Mobileye. And he talked about the journey, which was interesting. If you don't know, Mobileye was acquired by Intel for $15.3 billion. I think on the interview, Yuval, I made the mistake of saying 15.2, and he corrected me because, that 0.1 does make a difference. But he talked about the ups and downs, right? You'd think, it was just this like upward trajectory, and it wasn't. He talked about having to go back to his kids and his wife and, pulling the kids out of extracurriculars, no more eating out because there were lean times during those days too. I'm sure we can all relate to that. There's also, I had Ran Geva, founder of webs.io. They help companies with brand protection. I don't know if you know these people, through
I know, but some of my best friends work at Mobileye.
Okay. Cool. Joe Levy started AI Alert, which is a company to the power to combat mass shootings and violence, to detect guns. So it's a really interesting weapons detections on using surveillance cameras. So there's just some cool companies. Check them out on inspiredinsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. We do it in two ways. One, we're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, accountability, and the full execution and production. And number two, we're also an easy button for a company's corporate gifting. We make gifting and staying top of mind easy for clients, partners, prospects. And keeping in touch can be, a chore sometimes. We call ourselves the magic elves. You've all that run in the background and make it stress-free and possible so companies can build great relationships. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways on how I can give to my best relationships. I found no better way over the past decade to profile the companies I admire and also send them delicious treats in the mail. So you can check out rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. A special shout out to Andrew Gottlieb, who introduced us. He's a founder and CEO of No Typical Moments, and they specialize in working with purpose-driven and social impact businesses as a digital agency. So I am super excited to introduce Yuval Gonczarowski. He started off in Israel's 8200 intelligence unit. One fun fact about Yuval is he worked on the first prototype of the iPhone while at Apple.
Apple Watch.
What's that?
The Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch. Okay, cool. That's super impressive. And just to introduce, Akooda is the operations intelligence platform that helps innovative organizations unlock company-wide insights with the world's leading AI-powered enterprise search. And he'll go into that a little bit. So Yuval, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to pull up Akooda so people could check it out, but just start off and tell us Akooda and a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so Akooda originally started as an analytics company. I go back before the LLM era where, machine learning, deep learning, big data analytics was the buzzword. And we're only talking about 4 years ago, right? But technology is moving fast. Basically, what I set out to do is combine my two biggest passions in life. The first one is big data time series analytics. I've done that my whole life at Apple, later at Intel, as well as my time as a consultant with McKinsey. And the second thing is proper business management, right? Scaling companies. Every company goes through growth pains, even when everything is fine. I've seen organizations, extremely successful organizations, where two people are working on the same thing, or teams are not in sync. And so combining these two passions was my goal when I started Akooda. And we took a look at the entire digital footprint that companies have. and drew significant insights and anomalies from that, like changes in share of attention, or projects shifting from one thing to another, or where my resources are being allocated. And that grew very fast, and we had a phenomenal time doing that. When LLMs sort of became a thing of the public, we realized that we had something even bigger in our hands, which is we had a way of understanding how companies operate, and we were already integrated with the digital footprint of these organizations very deeply. We've already had deep knowledge graphs about who knows who, who's working on what. And so the next natural step was to build a highly secure, really enterprise search or enterprise intelligence platform that lets you ask really any question that you want and get an immediate answer. And that's where Akooda is today. The biggest benefit using Akooda is that, or one of the biggest, is that not only do we provide the answer, but also a deep layer of analytics and insights on top of the answer. And we do all of that without storing your company's raw data on our servers, right? So we know where the data lives on your systems, and we have a patented on-demand mechanism, on-demand querying mechanism that lets us exactly pick and choose the data that is relevant for us to give you the right answer.
I want to talk about the evolution of the product. You mentioned we started off with analytics, and I don't know if you want to talk about maybe the first customer or the first customers that you got, and then we could talk about kind of how the product evolved.
Yeah. If we're looking at the website, there's one thing. If we scroll a little bit more down, we call it the com chart here. Just go up a little bit. See that little thing on just a little bit more up on where the animation is. That little thing on the
right here.
Yeah, that you see that like comms chart between people on the bottom left.
Yep.
We call this the com chart. It's basically a way of understanding. I don't believe in the org chart. I believe the org chart is a lagging indicator for how the organization is working, right? Like who reports to whom is actually what should have been done a few months ago, but how people are working now, we have this thing called the com chart for them. And we draw this fully automatically. Now we do this based on certain topics, projects, all no human in the loop. So you can actually see working patterns across the organization, get to the exact person that you need that can answer your question. It's a big time saver, especially for companies with 20, 30, 40,000 employees that we have as customers. Actually, when I set out to fundraise, it was just me and a crazy idea. That was the only thing I had. I built that, kind of hacked my way into a script that does this. And you asked me about my first customer. This is a fun story. So, you talk to potential investors and other people. And one of the folks I was talking to was a great friend of mine, Bob Mason from Argon Ventures, who actually led the seed round at my former company, the company I worked with prior, Climacell. And I showed this to Bob. I said, "This is pretty cool. Let me intro you to another friend of mine who is the VP of engineering at a very large organization." I meet that VP of engineering, large enterprise. They see this. He's like, "All right, Yuval, great idea, but I'm not going to onboard something like that because compliance, security, vendor questionnaires, like talk to me when you're bigger." I'm like, all right, it's another call that I had. Few hours, I get a text from that guy saying, I actually spoke about this with my partner back home, and she works for a small organization. She was actually really interested to see the com chart of her company. Can you get on a call with her? I got on a call with her, and she asked me, "How much is this going to cost?" And I'm like, $1,000 a month. She's like,
did you say it like that with a question mark?
Send me something.
I don't know.
And actually, 24 hours later, I went to just start the Delaware company because I needed to get paid. And that's how the company started. So that's the first customer, which is it's a great story.
Just before you raised money.
Before we raised any money. So technically, that's the first customer, of course.
And she was interested in the com chart.
Yeah, the com chart, just like, especially, and this is big COVID days. No one knows who's working with whom and on what. How do we integrate new employees? Like we all felt this. Even I, at a company, you're trying to understand what's going on in your organization, and you lose one of your senses, right? Like sight. You just don't know what's going on. So, and I think in a sense that was a lot of the luck that brought us to a good start, because large organizations, enterprises feel this every day, right? Even if you're 100% in the office, you're at a 20-story building. It's basically like you're working remote. Second floor doesn't see the 20th floor. No one has any idea. But like we saw earlier, big organizations won't bring a small startup to solve something like that unless they have some traction and proof, right? And we were at a very special point in time or 3-4 years ago were smaller organizations that were more agile, lean, early adopters feeling those same pains. And so we had a great set of early customers that were able to take us further down the path of experimentation, refining the product, understanding how we can leverage the digital footprint, keeping security and privacy in mind. And I can talk a lot about security and privacy. It's a big thing here, of course, but keeping those things in mind and still giving everyone in the organization the visibility to get their best.
So I'm curious, Yuval, what was interesting to that person? Why was the comm chart? How are they going to use it? And I just want to point out here, I love how, so you could see here, if you're looking at the video, there's Slack, there's Salesforce, there's Google Calendar, there's Google Drive, and like all of it's kind of being fed into this Akooda engine. It spits out, what he was talking about, which started with this comm chart. But what was interesting to her about this? How are they using it?
Yeah, maybe I'll share a story from another customer that we had a few weeks later, just to emphasize the strength of what we call the contract. And there's a lot of, today you can just ask, hey, who knows the most about this project? And you get a name, right? Because search isn't just, and that's why if you scroll to the first start of our website, you'll see that search and answers are together, because I hate the word search. We're also ingrained to think that search is finding a word in a line, in a file, in a document, and that's all we need. But sometimes we search for more abstract things like, who can help me? What's going on with this? When was my last meeting? Do we have any questions left? Right? Those are the kind of things we're looking for answers on. And Akooda can provide that. You were asking me about the specific comm chart benefits. This is fun. Again, COVID days, I have a customer, they look at the comm chart, they see a silo in the corner, and they tell me, Yuval, this is great. Actually, all of these people started in the last 3 months, and we've been in COVID times. I haven't been able to, handhold, see them in the office, and I see that they're siloed. They're not communicating enough with the rest of the organization. So big win. I know exactly what I'm going to do after we get off this call, or after using, the very beta version of Akooda. As a side note, I'll say that a couple of weeks later, we spoke with another one of our early customers, saw another silo in the corner, and they said, this is great, the silo in the corner, because these are my PhDs working on problems that I'm going to experience in 2026, 2027, and I need them to be focused on that specific thing. So I think there's a lot that the contract can tell us. Today, when we split this, and today, of course, the product's a lot more mature. You can see this based on a specific customer. So you can see who the entire set of folks in my organization that are focused on that specific initiative, right from engineering, building custom solutions to enterprises, all the way to who's leading the sales, customer support. It's a great tool for sales teams to understand how things that are blocking their deal can be unblocked. It just helps us all be more cohesive and move a lot faster.
Yeah, I remember I was listening to you talk about that, and I thought it was funny because like one of them, they wanted them siloed and the other one they didn't. And it's funny, if they looked at the contract and saw any of those siloed people talking to anyone else, they'd be like, don't talk to anyone. We don't want you talking to anyone. So it starts out with the comm chart, and that person is super interested, and you build from there. What was the next kind of evolution of Akooda and the product?
So the next evolution was to understand that the comm chart for the entire organization is good, but we also want this to be topic-based, right? So I want to know everything that's happening with a specific customer, project, topic, person. To do that, we needed very strong mechanisms from the world of AI statistical modeling to identify topics and clusters of work within the organization, right? So it's not just, hey, here's a document, but now it's, hey, here's a document. These are the 5 things that it discusses, from customers, it's mentioning people, et cetera. And then we actually built a very, very flexible and lean knowledge graph of the digital footprint, anything from interactions, discussions, documents, people, Salesforce ops, everything we saw earlier, even comments on code. By the way, there's treasure in these code comments between engineers that tell us about the business. Once we have that knowledge graph built, we can ask a hell of a lot more questions than the contract. I can say, hey, here's my top most interesting projects for the year. 8 of them I know rolled out very successfully. Number 9 and number 10 didn't. Akooda engine, why, right? Find anomalies for those two projects. Maybe product team was over involved. Maybe response times were less, right? We had a customer saying, hey, this is great. I'm learning from this. The Akooda engine actually told me from this that I think I'm saving money by hiring offshore engineers, but the time from creating tickets to respond times, because my folks creating these issues are in the States, my offshore engineers are on the other side of the world, I'm actually losing time and value because of the turnaround time. So once we have that cluster, digital footprint is entirely mapped, understood, we can do a deep dive into the analytics. That is, year 2 of Akooda. And the biggest innovation is the whole concept of taking that into search, right? So now it's really just ask a question, get an answer. It starts with like asking, hey, do we have an NDA with whatever company, and just getting that NDA. But also, have there been any changes? And then maybe someone on Slack asked a question regarding this NDA. And maybe this customer 3 weeks ago, we mentioned there was a bug with them, and then we solved it. Maybe it's still open, right? Sorry about that. So understanding everything around a specific topic, person, project. That's to me what search is about.
Talk about, so I see that there's the com chart, then the knowledge graph as well. How are sales teams using it?
So imagine you're a salesperson. How much control do salespeople actually have over their sales process, right? They make money. They live and die by the sword, right? But especially in enterprise sales, there's always something you need from engineering. There's something you need from legal. There's something you need from procurement. You're sitting there. Your life depends on your ability to understand your company better than anyone else on the specific deal. That's one thing. But also, it's everything around. I need to be able to answer questions about the product, right? So if we released a new feature. And you see this all the time. The salesperson's on the call scrambling, like, who can tell me if the green button will ever do this, right? And you can just ask Akooda. And not only are you dependent on structured documentation anymore, it's enough that someone else has asked that question prior, or engineers spoke about it wherever, and you'll get the full set from the digital footprint. As long as you have access to it somewhere, you'll get that answer. And you'll also get the exact person who will be able to give you the answer to that question on top. And so it just shortens insanely the amount of time you need to understand your own organization, your own product.
Well, how did you decide, maybe it was the customers, because right now you probably integrate with a lot of workflows, and it probably depends on the company on what they're using. Like you have listed here, maybe someone's using Salesforce, maybe they're using HubSpot, maybe they're using, so where did you start? Because you had to build out all of these things to feed into Akooda.
Yeah. Great question. The first one was Slack. And by the way, it's also one of the hardest ones because it's
I could see Slack because I mean, in a small organization, if someone needs something, they put at channel, exactly. And everyone's like, hey, I need help with this. They at channel it. And if you have 15 people, it's not a big deal. If you have 2,000 people, that'd be insane, right? So I could see how a small organization, like 5 people, okay, we can just all channel it, but it doesn't work when you scale up with staff.
Once you hit 100, it no longer works, and I've seen that with companies. Also, the biggest challenge is to actually split conversations, right? If I go line by line or thread by thread, understanding zero-shot topic modeling, understanding when a conversation starts, when it ends, who the participants are, and what are the topics that I can extract from this, that's a big NLP challenge. And it's one of the first challenges that we've tackled as an organization. But overall, we categorize the digital footprint into 4 main categories, right? The first one is communication. So think Slack, but also Microsoft Teams, Discord, Zoom, right? These are all peer-to-peer chats. Once you have the data science, the statistical modeling engine behind one, it becomes an engineering challenge. From a very early on in Akooda's process, we abstract a specific tool away, which means we can actually develop more and more integrations, I think, faster than any other company. So the first one is communication. The second one is project management. So if we think Jira, Monday.com, Asana, these are tickets you move from side to side. Of course, all these companies claim that they're the best, and I have my own personal favorites, but at the end of
Which
the
are
day,
your favorites? What do you use?
I love them all, especially all of them are partners of ours. So
Who is it?
all of them are partners of ours.
Oh,
So
okay.
each one of them has their own benefits, but fundamentally, these are tickets assigned to people that you move. So understanding the abstracted model behind that is one. And then if a new tool comes out, then Akooda can already be on top of that technology. The third one is knowledge management system. So basically files, right? Think Dropbox, Box, Confluence, SharePoint, et cetera. And then the fourth one is customer relationship platforms like Salesforce, HubSpot, Zendesk, Intercom, et cetera. Of course, all of these are bucketing them all doesn't do them justice, but conceptually from Akooda's perspective, that's how we look at it, create the comp chart based on those, and then collecting the pieces together to give the customer, the end user, a full perspective of what's going on in their organization.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. Like you said, just Slack alone is not easy to pull in. Was there a certain order? Okay, we started because it sounds like Slack, was the start, which is more the communication channels. Did you follow, okay, next we're going to pull in project management, or did you just kind of tackle them as you got clients?
Yeah, I really believe in building off of our own or eating our own dog food and then letting the customers dictate the connectors roadmap, right? If I have a good customer, they're saying, hey, to complete the puzzle, I really would need you to do that. Then that's what moves our engineering. Shout out to our CTO, Itamar, our head of product, Ronnie. These are phenomenal people that know how to listen to customers very, very well. Even if we just look at Slack, right? And now, Akooda, of course, is a fully fledged product. We actually have this thing called the highlights reel, which will show you things that the AI engine determines that are of interest to you and you may have missed, right? So I can't be in every single Slack channel. Like we're a 20 people company, we have over that. Like it's insane, grows exponentially, right? And if there's a discussion in one Slack channel that the AI engine thinks that it would be very interesting to me, then it flags that to me. And then I feel a little bit more in control because then you get up in the morning, you're like, all right, where do I look first?
It's impossible. Yeah, I just look at mentions, and then if I have two things, that's all I look at. I'm not like scrolling through. Even I'm a part of different like mastermind groups. Jason Swink is a mastermind group for agency owners, and there's a lot of Slack, and it's like, where do I start? I don't go channel by channel, but like you said, if it had Akooda, maybe like, okay, here's maybe what I'm interested in, and it just shows me that because if I go in, no one's mentioned me, like I'm just kind of okay.
Yeah.
I'm not like kind of digging in that much.
Yeah, but imagine that, I don't know, you're very much on top of the cloud budget. You're like, all right, I need to approve or not approve every single expense that we have there. And then two engineers talk about something that's budget related. You're like, guys, let me weigh in on this. If I join this too late, it's going to hurt the business, right? So the AI engine would be able to say, hey, Jeremy, here's something that may be of interest to you, even though you're not part of it.
So I could see, how people are using this, Yuval. I'm curious how companies roll it out. So I don't know which example may be best. I know there was like a fintech and electronics and a healthcare example about implementing it in a company, right? Because they're used to going into Slack and they kind of have to get used to just something that's a little bit quicker and easier, but they're used to what they're used to, right? So which company example should we talk about as far as like a rollout goes?
Yeah, I think for rollout, one of the things that's very important, and this is again, kudos to our product team for highlighting this from day one, is I don't want to fight over screen time. I think fighting over screen time is one of the hardest things product-driven companies can do. Very few have won this fight, right? And on your browser, on your day-to-day, you're probably on GitHub, if you're an engineer, GitHub, Jira, Confluence. If you're in sales, it's going to be your CRM and one or two other like call recording tools or something like that. And then Slack, right? That's it. So of course you can log into Akooda for advanced users, watch analytics, like double click on everything and anything. But we also integrate externally with other tools. Like on Slack, you can just do /Akooda and ask the question. So even if you're on Slack, just like /Akooda, who can help me with whatever question? What's the green button do? When is this customer up for renewal? everything and anything, just like /Akooda ask the question and get the answer.
So they're already in Slack, let's say, and then Slack, you've integrated, Akooda, and so they could just put /Akooda, and then they'll get the answer. So basically, everyone just needs to be trained. All you have to do is do that from now on.
And then we also have a Chrome extension that can take a look at things while you browse. And let's say you're on a Jira ticket, can identify the other things in the digital footprint that are similar and can help you, which is even a little bit more push notification style than pull on the /Akooda.
Yeah, because it's one thing, the head honcho, in your case, Goncho, like says, yeah, let's do this. But then rolling it out to like 2,000 people is another story, right?
Yeah, of course. Stickiness inside the organizations is always something that has to be top of mind for every startup founder, right? It's not just getting the deal; it's getting folks to use it, getting it embedded into the day-to-day workflows. It's a never-ending task. It's a never-ending task. If you talk to a CEO and they say we figured it out, they're not thinking about the problem big enough.
Talk about the evolution of the team, right? It first started, it was you. You talked to Bob. You're like, I have this idea.
Yeah.
Talk about growing the team and hiring.
Yeah. So very quickly, I was always looking, and we even had a couple of folks who were chatting about opening this business because things moved so fast. For my story earlier, I ended up speaking to a couple of great investors, Bob from Argon, Micah from the Founder Collective, who ended up leading the round. And then they just said, Yuval, we've seen you at other companies, here's some money, pre-seed money, build a team. And then we were very fortunate to land some of the greatest minds. So Itamar, our CTO, he's an early member at Alam, sold to Microsoft. He brought some of his crew with him. So we've got a great set of folks with a lot of experience from Microsoft leading our difficult product.
How'd you know Itamar?
Well, we went to undergrad together.
Okay.
We go back 16 years.
What's the conversation look like? Because, he could be doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
What was the conversation like to be like, yes, let's do this together?
Yeah, I think I've chased him for a number of years. Even before I had an idea, I was like, "Hey, we're going to work together at some point." And now he's a partner all along the way. He's a great guy. Ronnie, our chief strategy officer, she actually led product at Climacell when I led tech. Really, also shout out to Climacell tomorrow.io, great organization, doing phenomenal things, by the way, for humanity. Launch satellites to space, great company. Definitely should look at it. So we've worked together in the past. Very, very easy to say, hey, why don't we take the wheel and do something big together? It's just blessed to be working with these people overall.
It sounds like you put these key leaders in place, and then they kind of had a network of people that they've worked with, and the team was kind of built with the people who knew each other. It was not like you were necessarily hiring just totally foreign people that no one knew, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's very much, and even now, we put a very strong emphasis. Eli was led engineering for SafeBase, recently sold to Drata. We were in touch. I know his former manager, strong recommendation. Michal's, great in marketing, been in the industry for a long time. Our employees, like I said, have either worked with us or came recommended, most of them. I think there's just something about the high risk you have to take when you hire someone for key positions very early on, that you just want to collect as much information as you can. And I'm also proud that when this is done right, we've got, I think, 40% female representatives in the organization overall. So it's not, it is something that once you get the right talent, I just think it solves itself. Right, I'm happy to have a very diverse group here from just great people who are like-minded, know how to challenge me. I know how to challenge them, and we're trying to build great things together.
So from the funding piece, you originally bootstrap, you get your first customer. When do you first take, and were you always looking for investment?
I think it's hand in hand. My first investors and I had relationships prior to them writing the check. I think it's always easier, and I always recommend it's sometimes when people go to start a company and they're like, I'm going to fundraise, they look at this in very transactionally, right? I'm going to go meet an investor, give a pitch deck. They're going to fall in love, give me millions of dollars, and I'm like, let's play that back for a second, right? You think that a 15 slide deck, as good as it is going to convince someone to give you millions of dollars, right? It's a high threshold, right? Building relationships, establishing rapport, working on yourself, getting to know the right people. That's a journey, right? And I think that the Akooda journey is exactly that, right? I knew our investors for months before they wrote the first check, and then also the folks that led later rounds, et cetera. These are either came also from folks that I met, and we went through a journey together. Also, there's such a big risk at bringing the wrong folks on board, right? I call my investors my friends, right? NFX Pete, who led my last round, he runs the board. He's on the board with me. If I didn't have any 100% trust, then we wouldn't be able to build great things together. And I think that's fundamental in establishing a business.
At what point from the customer side, it sounds like, did you get your first investment? Because obviously, you've proven people want this, they're paying for it, and that's helpful. And going to the investor and saying, hey, I have people who are interested in this, they're paying me already. At what point do you start to raise money from your customer, the customer side?
Yeah, I think it was at a point where I said, I think I have a pretty good path of what I need to do next, and these two hands aren't going to be enough to do it. And then, first of all, I convinced myself, right? And once you convince yourself that you have a plan, it's no longer just a slide or just a spreadsheet of the business plan. It is like this is really what I need to do today or tomorrow or next week, if I had the opportunity. I think if I had gotten funding earlier, I would have done wrong things with it. So it would have opened up too many opportunities for me that I wouldn't know what to do and how to get started.
Talk about the first enterprise client. Like early on, obviously they were smaller clients and the questions they were asking. And I watched one of your webinars and there was a large discussion on privacy, and the larger type enterprise clients really they're looking at this, right? And we can see right here on your page, and you go into great deal detail on the webinar on how you protect private information. When was the first enterprise client?
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, I think it was the start of year 2. We had to go, of course, there's certain building blocks any organization needs to be able to work with enterprise. SOC 2 compliance is one of them, right? Getting the papers in check, getting it to a level of maturity, knowing how to walk through a security related discussion with the CISO teams. Of course, Itamar brought a ton of experience on that. Our team is very oriented towards security. So we knew how to build these building blocks. Of course, spoke with friends who have done the same thing. Like life's a learning journey. I love saying I don't know. It's also one of my core values. So when I don't know, I just say I don't know. And then enterprise deals have 2 things that I think you're not prepared for until you really see them. One is the long sales cycle. So an email, a couple of days, couple of weeks, then another email, right? It's like there is a sense of urgency, but also you're not the first thing on mind for these people. So embracing that mentality, like, hey, this deal is moving forward. It's just going to take a few months to close it. And then also the similar aspects between enterprise deal and really small deals. At the end, business is always done between people, right? Not between companies. So creating the relationships with understanding the buyer, the champion, showing them company updates, right? We are very meticulous about sending our product updates to everyone, including folks in our pipeline, including partners, current customers, former customers. Everyone wants to see things that are moving forward. So, yeah.
Talk about the sales cycle for a second. I notice one thing, and maybe what has helped from a messaging perspective from the sales cycle. And what I noticed on the page here, you can see, I imagine coming up with this helps speed up the sales cycle and other things like this. And you can see when people are listening to the audio, it says ROI in 30 days, and it has like a measurement reclaim at least 2 hours per week per employee currently lost to information hunting, right? And so I'm sure as like a team, this lights a little bit of a fire. Be like, oh, okay, so we have 900 people. The total annual savings could be $1 million. Maybe we should
These are,
get
by the way,
this.
not made up numbers. This is like full backed research by leading organizations, Gartner, Forrester, McKinsey. They claim 20% of our time in a given day is spent looking for things. It goes back to my earlier point, right? Search is a broken word. We look for things all the time, not just where's my pen or where's the file, but like, hey, when's my next meeting? What am I doing? Who can help me with something? Right? These are things. If I always say, my challenge is start a meeting. Every time we start a meeting in the office, we run a search until we're about 5 or 10 minutes into the meeting, and then we're in decision time. But it always starts with running a search. Do we have everyone here? Is everyone who should be here? What are we going to talk about today? What like the first 5 or 10 minutes in every meeting are actually search. And so taking that all in and saying, hey, if you run a company of about 1,000 people and you use Akooda, you do actually save $1 million per year on execution costs.
I'd love to see your that SOP on before meeting. So do people do you go in and you're like, okay, is like those type of searches to start the meeting? Like, is everyone here? Will you repeat them again just for the listeners' sake?
Just my challenge. I'll throw it as a challenge, not even as a textbook. Like, just if you're listening to the podcast, think about your next business meeting and think about how you start the meeting. It's gathering information. When do we move from gathering information to deciding? That typically happens, from my experience, 5 or 10 minutes in already. And of course, let's not talk about the time when we talk about the weather. Everyone does that anyways. But like once we get to the meat and potatoes, it's the first 5 or 10 minutes in a meeting are trying to figure out why we're here. Do we have everything we need to make a decision? Let's collect information from everyone in the room, and then let's talk about what we're doing next. Using Akooda to do that, to build pre-read materials, right, can be a drastic time saver.
Yeah, I'm interested. I want to see another chart here, Yuval, of meeting time. Well, this is like finding things. I bet there's like some stat about how much time is wasted on meetings
Absolutely.
and what the ROI would be there. What also the benefits, like when people are thinking to, let's say, decrease the time, the sales cycle. This is one maybe statistic and information that you share. What's some others that kind of make people, that digs into the pain of what's going on? Because like you said, they have a million things going on in the organization.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I do want to share is that there's a large fintech company, publicly traded, that they had a meetingless week. And we helped them understand what that meant for the business. Like, all right, we had a week without meetings. What does this mean? And we have a use case on that also online. We can take a look at that later.
Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And another interesting thing maybe on the sales side is, right, let's say we have an existing customer and we need renewals, right? We need to reach out to that customer for renewal time. So now what Akooda can do is we can actually put the entire thing on a time series, right? From the moment we started conversations with them, which are may or may not have leftovers on Salesforce, but calendars, Zoom, emails, everything. We imagine everything on a company in a timeline. Now we're up for renewal. And when do I reach out for renewal? So this is something we did actually with a healthcare company that we explored. When we poke a customer about renewal in the last 3 months prior to renewal, it's actually too late, because they've already decided. But when I reach out to a company -6 to -3 months before renewal, I can actually still impact their decision, right? If they're saying no, I can convert it to a yes. If they're saying yes, I can actually maybe increase the price or see how I can push them a little bit more, right? So this is, again, the nerdy mindset of let's put everything on a time series and have that as a story. It's looking at business and business processes the same way you would look at changes in weather or changes in heart rate.
Talk about the meetingless week.
Yeah. So big company decided they're going to do a meetingless week, right? It's an HR ops decision. And then how do I measure it, right? Like well, first, I guess I'd like to ask, what's my KPI? Do we want a meeting this week just because we want people to have some peace and quiet? Okay, maybe. But then did we lose speed? Did we gain speed? What did it do to us? Right. So one first naive thing we can do is we can actually take all meetings and figure out how much a single meeting costs us. But we can also see our cadence, right? Like we've got projects going on, we've got customers we're closing, we've got things that need to be developed. How is our meeting this week impacting those? Right. And maybe we did have some meetings in the meeting this week. So what does it tell us about, let's say we did have meetings. What does it tell us about the meetings that we didn't have? Do we actually need them, right? There's a lot to learn from that. And the great thing about Akooda is that it's an engine that can just look at things through an anomaly detection eyes and tell us interesting things that have happened during this week compared to others.
So what'd you find? I don't know
for
if
that.
Yeah.
No, I think overall great. And also, redundant meetings that we actually don't need to return to the table.
Do you remember how much time they were spending in like a regular week in meetings versus?
I don't remember the specific numbers. I think there's a use case on the website. If not, I can share that PDF with you later. The anonymized PDF. I'll take a look at it later. I just don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'll pull it up while we're talking to see if because I do want to talk about some of these use cases, but or any of these ones that we have the healthcare, the biotech.
I'll take a look.
The Akooda's enterprise, but I do want to talk about a use case, like how are companies using it, and maybe talk about a healthcare company. How are they using Akooda?
I think that I gave that example on the renewal. I think -6 to -3 company. I
got it.
Take a look at. I think this is from our dashboard screen. It's not the specific use case, but so basically on Akooda, we've got. I sent this out on the Zoom chat.
Oh, cool. I'll pull it up.
Yeah. Basically, so the Akooda AI engine, we've got all these use cases, right? So if you want to run your no meeting experiment, we have a dashboard that's ready for you. That you can just understand.
Oh, here it is.
Example, right? You've got tickets, work effort, and done rate. Like, how did it impact your individual contributor work, conciseness, collaboration rates of discussions, right? If you dropped your meetings and then all you're doing on Slack is explaining yourself, you actually lost time, right? So we're giving you full visibility into that.
So how they use it, instead of doing a meeting, would they just ask Akooda?
Yeah, of course. Like, and then you can do a no meetings week with Akooda, no meetings week without Akooda, and Akooda will just speed things up for you regardless, right? But this is more like, people want to ask themselves the question, how do I run as an organization?
Interesting. Yeah. What did Akooda, did you guys suggest that, or was that something that they wanted to do? Like, we want to do a week without meetings.
I think they wanted to do a meeting without a week without meetings. We were like, what if we could tell you exactly what it does to your business? Exactly what it does. And then we can figure out if we want to do more of these, less of these, or if there's just a lesson learned that we can improve cadence. Because all companies need meetings, right? And also all companies complain that they have too many meetings. Those are like both like axioms. But maybe we can just like take a look after this no meeting. We can actually improve everything other than it's not just putting a Band-Aid, it's also fixing the broken bone.
Yep. I don't think we talked about healthcare. You mentioned, I don't know if we talked about the fintech security company and how they use Akooda.
Yeah. So this is a fun story. I mentioned that to work with public companies, you need SOC 2 compliance, right? And so we at Akooda, we went through SOC 2 compliance, and this is actually about how I messed up as a CEO. Is I was too cheap to bring in an external solution to help us become compliant, and then what Akooda told me is that I'm overworking my engineering team on compliance things other than features. So I'm actually losing time because my engineers are not building features; they're working on compliance, and that's where I'm losing company. That's exactly how. The kind of insights that Akooda could provide. Once I saw that, I actually told myself, hey, look, it makes no sense. We got to the point where like 80% of our engineers' time is spent on compliance. And I brought on board a third-party tool, SecureFrame, to help us become SOC 2 compliant. I think that that use case is actually on the Secure Frame website because when they saw it, they became customers.
Yeah, you used it for yourself in this situation.
Yeah. We ate our own dog food.
Yuval, I have one last question. First of all, thanks for sharing this super interesting journey. People can, check out Akooda.co. I just love to hear some of your favorite resources. It could be software tools. I mean, I know you've experienced just by integrating them in for companies, but some of your favorite software tools and things that you use as a company.
Yeah. Big fan, like I said, of all productivity related tools. One tool that I really like and admire is DocSend by Dropbox, actually, recently acquired by Dropbox. I think it's a great way to understand and collect analytics, to know what your documents do when they're out there in the field rather than just attaching it as an email. So big fan. And then, of course, other products rolled out that are very similar, but DocSend is near and dear to my heart. I think it's a phenomenal tool. And then, of course, there's just a new age of AI-related tools that's just mind-blowing. Cursor as an engineering tool is really changing the way we write code. Also very risky, right? Writing code at scale, letting an AI agent do what they want, it can also be risky. I think
because you grew up in an AI household where your parents were professors, right? So you've been on the cutting edge before it was cool. Any other cool AI tools that people should experiment with? I remember I just tested out like Suno. I don't know if you've tested Suno, where you could put someone's information in and it spits out like a song about them. Just like interesting tools. Any that you've been playing around with?
Yeah, I think so. We always use interchangeably all LLMs, from the big companies, because again, we're trying to always test them all. Of course, everything around the office is now memes of pictures, like people's faces in comic style and everything. Great humor. They're all over. I'd say I am very impressed, very, very impressed with Cursor as a tool that helps people write code faster. That is one thing I still like. I just love it. Everything is just becoming an enabler for writing faster code, building products quicker. I've always been proud of the fact that I can sort of like play both sides, right? Write code and talk to people. I think that genre no longer requires people to get an engineering degree, and it's going to change the world. It's absolutely astonishing.
Yuval, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out Akooda.co to learn more and more episodes of the podcast. We'll see you next time. Yuval, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.